This program is made possible in part thanks to generous donations from viewers like you.
Welcome to the Suzanne Atwell Show. Thanks for joining us. In this episode, New College in Sarasota, education reform in Florida, and the negative impact of political opportunism on free speech, learning, diversity, and inclusion. We begin our story with the historic campus and the founding of New College. Founded in 1960, the college began as a private institution. The United Congregational Church provided the startup money. The guiding principles were equality and inclusion. The campus includes 3 historic structures that date back to the 1920s, long before the college was founded. College Hall was built and owned by John Ringling's brother Charles and his wife Edith. The Mediterranean Revival home where their daughter Hester lived is now Cook Hall. Both Ringling properties were part of the estate purchased by New College in 1961. Old Caples Hall was owned by Ralph and Ellen Caples. Ellen donated the home and property to New College. The school joined the state university system in 1975 as part of the University of South Florida. In 2001, New College parted with USF, became an independent member of the state university system, and the Florida legislature designated the school as the Honors College for the state of Florida. From the beginning, the college stood for equal rights, diversity, and the best of the best academic standards. To understand the motivation of authoritarian overreach at New College, one has to take a step back and look at the record of Florida laws that target K-12 schools. In March 2022, Ron DeSantis signed the Don't Say Gay bill into law. Under the guise of protecting parental rights, the law is a direct attack on gender rights, free speech, and public health. 2 months later, in April, the anti-woke bill is signed. It censors American Black history and inhibits the discussion of race in the classroom. The book ban bill, it allows anyone who is a resident, whether they have kids in school or not, to file a complaint about a book, which can lead to the book being removed. In just 90 days, sweeping Florida education reform laws fanned the fires of counterculture fears and conspiracies, increased the governor's campaign chest by hundreds of millions of dollars, and demoralized teachers, librarians, and minorities. So what do you do for an encore? You wreak havoc on New College. You dismantle a model that stood for inclusion and diversity for one that mimics a private conservative religious school. And worst of all, in the name of democracy, you exploit fear and division to raise money and advance your own political agenda.
We reject this woke ideology. We seek normalcy, not philosophical lunacy. We will not allow reality, facts, and truth to become optional. We will never surrender to the woke mob. Florida is where woke goes to die.
To help us understand the principles New College stands for and how the authoritarian overreach is impacting Florida, we turn to a noted libertarian scholar and the father of 2 New College grads. Welcome, Adrian. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks very much. It's great to be on.
You're a policy vice president at the Reason Foundation. We are talking about public education in Florida. So give us your perspective on what is going on at New College.
Yeah, New College is an interesting place. So, I work at a public policy think tank that works on higher education policy, and so I have sort of that wonky take on it. But I'm a Sarasota resident. Both of my kids graduated from New College. So I've had a lot of interaction with New College. It's a very interesting place. And this situation that we have where Governor DeSantis has, as part of his broader sort of anti-woke kind of culture war set of policies, and has decided to start with New College by appointing a conservative board of directors there and essentially directing them to kind of change the course of the college to be more conservative. And to me, that's a very, I understand, what he's articulating and what he says he's trying to do. But New College is such an odd place to start because New College is not just a college in the Florida state system. It is an alternative school that has become the honors college for the Florida state system. There's a reason why there's less than 1,000 students there. It's a very particular approach to learning that is not curricula driven. The majors are not canned packages of courses. It's much more self-driven. It's much more exploratory, and it's much more rigorous than most other Florida state colleges. So it's not the kind of place that attracts students who want the typical kind of old school, what you might call small c conservative, as in the way it's always been done, kind of conservative education. This is the kind of place that attracts people who really want to do something very different.
Sure. Let's go back for a moment. I want to hear where you're coming from. You can tell me a little bit about the Reason Foundation.
Reason Foundation is a libertarian nonprofit organization. Our motto is free minds and free markets. We work on all sorts of policy issues, including education. And our general approach to things is that we should be building policies based as much as possible around individual responsibility and personal responsibility and market-based approaches to things. So that's a bit different when you're talking about public education, right? Like, so private universities are a thing, and that's great, and but there are a lot of public universities. The question of what the right institutional structures are is sort of a big one. But that's not actually the question that Governor DeSantis, he's not trying to change whether, some sort of fundamental thing about whether we have public or private education. He's used Hillsdale College, which is a private conservative college, as sort of the touchstone to say, yeah, New College should be more like Hillsdale. But Hillsdale's a private college. It has a fundamentally different mission and structure than a public university. He's not trying to privatize New College. So it's kind of an odd approach to say, well, we'll sort of try to make a conservative public college. And it makes me think, reading, before I became an economist, I'm an economist, by the way. Before I became an economist, I was a historian. I got a master's in history before I went in the military and then got out and got my economics degree. And I remember reading Greek and Roman intellectuals writing about the problem with what the equivalent of the universities they had in ancient Greece. Think about, Socrates was a teacher in Athens, and you had essentially university-type education going on, and it was very progressive for those days. And you had the conservative intellectuals saying, we need to create our own schools for the kids, to try to teach kids to be conservative, because all these college kids, they didn't use the word college, are progressive. And so it goes back to Greek and Roman times that college kids tend to be more progressive and less conservative. Not that there's no conservative students, but the notion that you're gonna turn around the Florida state system by trying to change the board of directors and adopt conservative management policies seems like not the path that has historically succeeded.
And that's back to that, what you just said. How do you reconcile the principles of rational discourse and the scientific method with what Governor DeSantis is trying to do?
Yeah, or even broadly, further politicizing the decision-making and management of universities is not how you improve the educational outcomes or intellectual diversity
Right.
at these colleges. Now, not that there's nothing to be addressed here. One thing, maybe the only criticism I really have of New College at sort of a fundamental level is I have never found the faculty or administration there to be intolerant at all. In fact, they really embrace sort of this very broadly inclusive philosophy, which
Right.
means they've always had conservative students there.
Right.
I will say the student body at New College, as I think we all know, and I think some of your other guests will talk about the
Right.
fact that student bodies around this country are suffering from what I would call an intolerance problem. It has become cool to be intolerant in a lot of ways, and I
Right.
think so. The New College student body does suffer from that. So it's tough to be a conservative student at New College.
Also, what's happening, the principle of limited government seems to be trampled on. Not just at New College, but throughout the intrusion of Florida laws on banning books, censoring Black history. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's rather than hewing to conservative principles of smaller government and less intrusions in people's lives, the Governor DeSantis has very fully embraced let's use the full powers of government and let's look for ways to expand the power of government in order to pursue a conservative agenda. And it's not just sort of the social justice, the anti-social justice, I guess, or
Right.
the anti-woke agenda, I think is how he would probably describe it. It's wielding and expanding the tools of government to pursue that, which is not exactly the traditional Republican or conservative approach to governance.
Final question, how does New College have it both ways?
Hopefully it shakes out to where New College remains the unique and amazing. One of the things I should have said at the beginning is the level of scholarship of the students at New College is freaking amazing. I employ undergraduate and graduate student interns all the time. New College students are definitely a level above your average undergraduate students. So it's an amazing place academically and intellectually. I'm hoping that won't change. I'm hoping it just becomes a more tolerant place.
Right.
Maybe it's a more comfortable place for conservative students going forward, but not an uncomfortable place for progressive students because that's what's made it such a great institution.
On the eve of Black History Month, the governor called for the defunding of all diversity, equity, and inclusion at state colleges. That decision sparked a national reaction and flew in the face of a Sarasota-born Black man who New College recruited.
When I was hired with those two job titles, I was really kind of given a blank slate to come up with a strategy and come up with an approach and to develop an office that would have the combined roles of building stronger relationships external to the community, to the college, and also supporting a more inclusive environment within the college and help to build a brand that would be more attractive to a more diverse learning community.
Are you concerned that what we're seeing happen at New College, in particular Florida public education, again, reflects a national trend?
It's certainly where certain parties would like to take us nationally. It's certainly part of a larger context as well. You know, I mean, we've moved from having political differences to having a political divide to being culture wars, and that's not a healthy trend. College, higher education, particularly a classical liberal arts education, it's about engaging a breadth of perspective, looking at the facts from different points of view, using critical thought, analysis to understand both arguments, both sides of an argument. And that's always what I think New College aspired to. I think, like a lot of colleges, it's somewhat leaning liberal to the left, progressive thinking. I think we've come to think about higher education as being more of a progressive project, unfortunately. And this doesn't feel like a desire to bring things more to the center, but more of an approach that just wants to blast the whole project out of the water and replace it with a very prescribed and very narrow and conservative perspective. That's not. It's both inauthentic and it also gets in the way of, I think, of really developing the capacity for critical thought. One of the things that New College rightly celebrates and has for years is the fact that it gives the young people agency to define their own pathway, to take responsibility for their own learning, and to challenge whatever the dogma of the day might be, whether it's on the left or on the right. It's drawn people to that institution who celebrate that, who believe in that, both in agency and in critical thinking.
Sure.
It doesn't feel like it's moving towards being a safer place or even a place where that can be allowed in the future. It feels very restrictive, and that's unfortunate.
Finally, it's been 55 years since Dr. King was assassinated. We live in a state where laws and equity he fought and died for are clearly under siege. Why do you think these regressive policies are happening right now?
That's a really interesting question. We've been on a trend for the last, some people say 10 years, some say 20, where the divide just deepens every day, and where the loudest voice, the most, the sharpest, most antagonistic soundbite is the one that wins. And it seems clear that in addition to what's going to happen in terms of what happens at New College, who's going to apply there, given this rebranding and repositioning of the school's mission, who's going to want to work there. It also seems like it's a real grab for attention on the national stage. And frankly, these kinds of stories do get the public eye. I've not seen New College mentioned in the Washington Post or the New York Times in the last 4 years that I've been working there, except for the last 2 months, in which case every other day there's an article. Because so visibility and being in this combatant kind of a posture seems to pay benefits for some people. I'm saddened and frustrated by this turn of events because I feel like giving advice, being a consultant is kind of a big part of who I am. It's actually work that I did that led me to higher education in the first place, was consulting work and organizational assessment work. At this point, the people that I would want to advise really don't have a voice any longer in how the school's going to be administered. And the people who are in control, I really don't think they care about my opinion, no matter how informed by either education or history that perspective might be. And that's really sad.
Yes, Bill, it is very sad indeed. Few people in Sarasota know the details of what is happening at New College more than Sarasota Herald Tribune writer Zach Anderson.
So what happened was on January 6th, Governor DeSantis appointed 6 new members to the New College Board of Trustees, and that's not unusual. The governor gets to appoint college trustees at all of the universities around the state. It happens all the time. The governor gets a certain number of appointments. Others are appointed by the State Oversight Board for universities. And then you also have a trustee who's a representative of the faculty and a trustee who's a representative of the students. So the governor has a certain batch of appointees, and Governor DeSantis put these 6 in all at once, which is somewhat unusual to have this many come on at once. But what was even more unusual was that there was statements by people in the governor's office and others saying that this was really part of an effort to really transform New College, to overhaul it, to just completely reorient the school. And they have now a majority of board members. There's one more new trustee who was appointed by the State Board of Governors, which is heavily influenced by DeSantis. So they have 7 out of the 13 board members now, and they're able to control policy on the new college board, and the stated intention has been to really reorient New College. There was a comment that they wanted to make it more like Hillsdale College, which is a private Christian school in Michigan, and implement what they're calling a classical education model. But the governor's made it pretty clear that this is sort of part of what he views as a war on woke, that he feels like New College has gotten too progressive, too far down the line into more liberal activism, and that he wants to change the school and really rein in what he sees as I guess liberal excesses at the school. The interesting thing is that New College was founded in 1960 as sort of a different approach to education. It was founded as a progressive college, and that's sort of been in its blueprint and its DNA from the beginning. And so this would be just a huge change. And this is really unprecedented. I don't know of any other efforts like this to really remake a public university in really a specific ideological mode like this.
Mm-hmm. And the size of it, it's conveniently small.
Yeah, I think that helps with this takeover effort. It would be much more difficult to pull something off like this at the University of Florida or Florida State University, very large institutions that have very active alumni bases and big bureaucracies that would be hard to reorient. New College is a very, very small school. It's small even by the standards of liberal arts colleges, with only about 700 students. It's easier to come in there and really shake up the staff. That's one of the things that they're talking about, is bringing in new staff. They fired the president and put in a new interim president who's an ally of the governor. They're talking about hiring new faculty who would likely be more conservative from conservative points of view. So really big changes at the school.
And this year, DeSantis has his sights set on public colleges and universities, but earlier his focus on K through 12 reform, which has resulted, as we've seen, in book bans and censorship of Black history. So in the wake of this conservative sweep of the Sarasota School Board, what changes do you see coming?
Well, I think education has been a huge part of the governor's agenda. He's really focused on that as a main aspect of his sort of culture war agenda, where you've really seen that he is tapping into sort of conservative distrust of schools from K-12 all the way up to the university system. This has been something where he's passed a number of laws through the legislature, his Stop Woke Act, the Parental Rights and Education Act, which was derisively nicknamed the Don't Say Gay bill.
He mirrored the College Board with this school board.
Initially, DeSantis has focused more on K-12. Now, in his after his reelection, he's really targeted the university system. We've seen this not just at New College, but around the state. The governor's office requested budget information from universities on their diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. There's a push to get rid of all of these diversity programs at colleges around the state, and that was actually one of the first things that the new board members did at New College, was make a push to get rid of their office that handles diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
We touched on this a little bit with New College. What impact will the governor's plan to eliminate diversity initiatives have with regard to grants? There are grants and programs in place. What happens to them?
Yeah, that gave some of the new board members a little bit of pause when they pushed to get rid of this diversity office at New College, which they call the Office of Outreach and Inclusive Excellence. There was some concern that could have some collateral damage on programs that they maybe didn't necessarily mean to impact. The office oversees a number of grants for outreach in the community and also diversity efforts on campus. Those are private monies that have been donated to try and do some of these things. And it's not clear that they want to get rid of those grants or if they got rid of this office, how that would impact those grants. So they did actually put a pause on that at the first board meeting and said that they were wanted to, continue to research it, but they weren't going to take action immediately because of the potential fallout for some of those grants.
Right, and some of those grants how long are they going to be going on? And, they may be biding time with this.
Yeah, I think that there was a sense that some of the new board members weren't completely clear as to what all those grants did, that they needed to get more information. It just shows that when you come in, you're trying to shake things up, you're trying to make pretty dramatic changes, and very quickly, you might do some things that you're not quite completely clear on the ramifications of that, and so they did pause that, at least in the interim.
Right. Do you think that the new board is, as we move forward, will this keep up this fast-paced? You know better than anybody that the fast-pacedness of this, every day something needs to happen, that the more educated they get with this college and all these things that we're talking about, that it will make a difference.
I think that they really have tried to move pretty quickly on this. It seems like they want to come in and make a splash and shake things up quickly. From the time that the governor appointed new board members on January 6th, it was only 25 days until the president of the college was fired. So it was really lightning quick in terms of how universities typically operate. Usually they have procedures to follow and rules in place and bureaucracies and things like that that'll slow some of this stuff down. But some of the new board members really wanted to move quickly. In particular, Christopher Rufo, who is a well-known conservative activist, he said that they were going to move extremely fast, and he made a motion right at the first board meeting to get rid of this diversity office, and obviously right at the first board meeting they fired the president. Those are pretty dramatic changes to happen within just basically 3 weeks.
They're doing exactly what DeSantis is doing, and this paceness of it.
Yeah, the governor likes to do a lot of initiatives. I mean, he comes out and it seems like every week that there's something new. He has a way of getting media attention, finding issues that resonate with his base and often are very controversial and have made him a very popular governor with Republicans and a presidential hopeful potentially. This model that he has done, where he has taken some pretty provocative actions, has worked for him politically, and New College is right at the center of all of that. It really is one of the more audacious moves to take this university that's been around for 63 years, that has had sort of one path for a long time, and basically to just flip that on its head and completely reorient a public university like this.
Absolutely. Zach, thank you so much for joining us.
It was great to be here. Thank you.
So there you have it, folks. What we are seeing in Sarasota, in the state of Florida, is a hard shift to the right and the end of the age of reason. Make no mistake, these are not traditional Republican values at work. The governor and our former president put ambition, power, and winning above reason, truth, and equity, which is exactly why an inclusive education, free of political manipulation, is critical to the future of our republic. For more information, visit these sites. And you can always watch this episode and all our previous episodes on my website, Facebook, and YouTube platforms. Well, that wraps up another one. Hope you learned something and enjoyed the show. Thanks for watching, and until next time, we'll see you around town.
Atwell Media is a registered, not-for-profit 501c3. If you would like to support local public service programming like this, please visit our website, SuzanneAtwell.org, to make a tax-deductible donation. Thank you for watching.